There's been a little bit of a misconception that's gone around college football the last couple of years with the changes that have happened to the sport in relation to Kirby Smart and how he's handled it, more specifically about the transfer portal. I think that people are starting to wean off of the narrative that Kirby Smart hasn't done a good job in the transfer portal. They're losing more impact players than they're bringing in. I think after this season, people won't be if people are still saying that, they're not going to be saying that about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs after this season, because I think they're going to have more than one impact transfer, right? Last year, I think they had one impact transfer. They had, a couple of impact transfers previous to that. This year, I think that they could have two, three, four impact transfer players on this roster that are important, that are helping them win football games, that are out there starting and playing significant downs. And that should scare people about the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart, because if he's got that part too, right? They're already recruiting at the high school level better than anybody else, really. From top to bottom, they're doing a better job than anybody else over the last few years in college football. I don't expect that momentum to slow down. You factor in getting real impact, like significant players in the transfer portal with that, in addition to growing the talent that they're bringing in from day one. I mean, that means they're doing everything better than everybody, almost. And that should scare people about this, because the transfer portal and the rules they're pretty wild right now, and I don't think that they're going to be like this forever. But if they are open to this and Kirby Smart can go pluck out a new wide receiver, a new running back, a new linebacker, a new tight end, whatever it is that he feels like they need to go get and add to this roster, they could do that in addition to the high school recruiting. And I think that they're going to be able to do that here at a really elite level, right? Down the line, is it really going to surprise you when Georgia gets a Jaden Daniels types of transfer, or, not a Joe Burrow, but the same concept, someone that comes in and is really, really good? I don't think you can repeat really what Joe Burrow did. A Michael Penix type of transfer. One day, Georgia's going to get a quarterback like that, and they're going to have a huge year. If they didn't end up having a homegrown quarterback, they've already flirted with getting Jaden Rashada from Arizona State. At least the rumor mill is that is a huge possibility. Kirby likes 4 scholarship quarterbacks. But as far as this 2024 team, there's a few guys I think are going to make a huge... I just, at this point, I think that they're going to be really important players for the Georgia Bulldogs this season, and I think they're going to be part of the reason. Look, if I had to predict it right now, you sat here and said, Ryan, what's going to happen in the 2024 season? The team that I'd feel most comfortable saying I think they're going to win the national championship would be the Georgia Bulldogs. And these guys are why. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post talking about Kirby Smart, how they're handling the transfer portal, and how if the misconception's still out there that they're not doing a good job with it, that's just flat out wrong. And let's start with Trevor Etienne. Florida is a little bit of a disaster, right? Is that might be a little harsh, right? It's not good. And they could legitimately have another losing season this year. I don't think, Graham Mertz coming back maybe is a good thing for them. They've got a quarterback coming in, but their overall roster is just not that great. And, a couple of their really good players going to the draft, and then a couple of their other really good players leaving in the transfer portal. And Kirby Smart picks up one of the best running backs in the SEC that's remaining, Trevor Etienne, that has been a contributor on the Florida Gators, Georgia's rival, for the last couple of years. Right, we've seen Jermaine Burton go to Alabama's not a rival, but there has been kind of a budding rivalry, at least some serious competitive nature between Georgia and Alabama. Right, playing a lot of big time games. Jermaine Burton goes to Alabama after Georgia beats them in the national championship, so Georgia's had that kind of done to them. But now doing that to Florida and going and getting one of their better football players, and you would think that a guy like Trevor Etienne, who gets 600-700 yards each of the last 2 years in a rotational back role, it looks like he's geared up to be the lead running back for the Georgia Bulldogs. At least it seems that he's going to get the most touches. I think that eye test wise, he definitely is the best running back on the roster. Kirby's talking about comparing him to James Cook, to Andre Swift. If he can have that type of impact, then we're talking about a transfer I mean, I think Trevor Etienne could have 1,000 yards on the ground. That's in the cards. He might be missing a game to do that, and that's not going to make it easier. But I do think it's possible for him to get 1,000 yards, and at the very least 1,000 scrimmage yards, because I think that he's going to be utilized in the passing game as well. And we saw that at G-Day when you see that he gets 3 catches for 33 yards. He gets 4 rushes for 24 yards. He gets the 18-yard rush where he bounces out to the outside. Against the Georgia defense that was really shutting down the run at G-Day, he's able to get one of those explosive runs. Kind of give and take there as far as is that better on Georgia's defense, better for, or bad on Trevor Etienne and those Georgia running backs? I don't know, but he did show some flashes, especially on a couple of those plays. If you could just go pick up some of the best players from your rival teams, then, it's weird, right? You look at the NBA, and that has happened with Kevin Durant leaving the Thunder and going to the Warriors. Well, there's nothing you can do about that. The Warriors are just stacking a juggernaut team. Ohio State's doing that, right? Georgia getting in the game a little bit of doing that. Maybe not getting the names like a Caleb Downs or a Walter Nolan, but Trevor Etienne, obviously one of the bigger names in this cycle, and a guy that, like I said, he's going from wearing orange and blue to red and black, and that's a little bit weird when you think about it, and it'll be interesting to see how he does in that game in Jacksonville late October. So right off the bat, I think he's going to be an impact guy. Real quick, let's talk about Benjamin Urasek. There's a reason why they're bringing him over. You look at the clips, I think he's going to be a good vertical threat from that tight end position. A position that I think they have plenty of guys in when you think about Oscar Delp and how he's been in the program now. This will be year 3 of being a contributor. Lawson Lucky, I think, is going to get a lot of snaps. I think he's going to be in the rotation. Jaden Riddell showed some serious promise at G-Day. I thought that he looked good. Gunnar Stockton did a good job of getting him the ball, but he was getting open at that tight end position. A guy that seems like he's explosive. Maybe hints of Brock Bowers. Not Brock Bowers, maybe a hints of it. And I think that they've got a lot of tight ends that have vertical threat potential and, some run after the catch ability. I think that they're good in that spot. And Benjamin Urasek only adds to that. They're going and getting guys that I think will be impact players. He won't have this, obviously later transfer, won't have this spring to develop and integrate himself. But I think he'll be an impact guy. I think Colby Young, if you look at him, will be an impact guy, right? Couple catches at G-Day from Carson Beck, one of them being a touchdown in the end zone. That 6'5 frame, over 200 pounds, 6'5", being able to be a threat on the outside, an X receiver on the outside that can go up and get jump balls, a red zone threat, right? You add that when you miss a Brock Bowers. He did a lot of those things. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaye did those things. Colby Young can come in and do some of those things for Georgia that they will be missing from those guys. And you saw at G-Day exactly what we thought Colby Young might be able to do for the Georgia offense. He showed it at G-Day, right? And I'm sure he showed it in practice and at the other scrimmages this spring. He'll be an impact guy. Xavier McLeod had a tackle for loss or a sack at G-Day, a defensive lineman. But then you think about it, and when the transfer portal was in its earlier days a few years ago, immediately they went out and got a couple big names in Darian Kendrick, right, in 2021 summer, and Eric Gilbert. Only one of those worked out, and Darian Kendrick ends up being a guy that wins postseason awards for Georgia in the Orange Bowl, a defensive player of the game, and he's the number 1 corner on that team, on that one of the best defenses in all of college football history, right? So they go out and they immediately go get a guy from, another team that's not even 75 miles away. Georgia or Clemson and Athens, I don't think are even 75 miles away from each other. Right? I'd have to pull that up, but it's not even a 2-hour drive between those two schools. Going and picking apart and getting, border rivals, going and taking those players from those teams. A year ago, Dominic Lovett ended up being a guy that is probably going to be Georgia's number 1 receiver this year, in year 2 in the program, but in year 1, he was the second leading receiver behind Brock Bowers. So the whole narrative about Kirby and this transfer portal, I do think it's starting to die off. This year will confirm that they are doing a good job with it, despite, losing an A.D. Mitchell. Yes, that hurts. That one's a little bit more of a different circumstance. It wasn't because he wasn't happy at Georgia. It was because of family stuff, right? It wanted to be around his daughter and providing for her. Jermaine Burton, it was a little bit of a different situation, right? But for the most part, they're gaining more impact players, and I think that they are losing players that were making an impact. A lot of the players that are transferring out from Georgia are bench players or players that only made a flash here and there. For the most part, they've kept the guys that contribute in a very significant way in-house. So I think that this narrative will die off this year if it hasn't already. Thanks for watching.